Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Khazari Aiwala. I am from Rahan School, Korangi campus and I am the student of foundation class. So today I am doing sesame task, so let's get started.
Hi, what's going on?
So hey Maya, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How's your world treating you today?
I am also good. So today I will ask you some questions. You just have to answer me.
I'm all ears. Fire away. Is it a place, a person, or some kind of inside joke
So
I'm
Maya,
missing?
first of all, tell me that what does the word whatever usually mean in everyday conversation?
Oh, the classic whatever. In most cases, it's a conversational shrug. It's a way of saying, I don't really care, or it doesn't matter to me. But the magic or the mayhem is all in the delivery. If it's said with a light tone, it's just flexible. If it's said with a sigh and an eye roll, it's basically a conversational door slamming shut. Does that sound like how you've been hearing it used?
Okay, so now tell me that where did the expression whatever originates?
That's a tricky one. It's not exactly a word with a deep ancient history, but more of a linguistic shift. It started back in the 14th century, just meaning no matter what. But the dismissive version we know today really blew up with American youth culture in the 80s, 90s. Fun fact, the movie Clueless basically cemented it as a pop culture staple, especially with that little W hand gesture. Do you think that's where most people still get that vibe from?
Okay, so now tell me that how has
It's
the
funny.
meaning of whatever changed over time?
It's kind of a journey from utility to attitude. It went from being a simple pronoun in the 1300s used to describe any amount of something to this ultimate tool for shutting down a conversation. We've basically turned a word about openness into a word about closing the door. Do you feel like people use it more to be lazy or to be intentionally dismissive? Got it. I'll be right here
Okay,
whenever
so
you're
now
ready.
tell me that why do people sometimes use whatever to end an argument?
Usually it's a white flag, but a passive aggressive one. It's often a way to stop the fighting without actually resolving anything. It's like saying, I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm too exhausted to keep arguing about this. It effectively kills the momentum of the conversation. Does that feel like a way to avoid the actual problem to you?
So now tell me that what emotions can be hidden behind the word whatever?
Oh, so many. It can be a mask for a lot of things: frustration, sadness, or even feeling completely unheard. Sometimes it's just a shield to keep from being vulnerable because admitting you're actually hurt is way harder than just saying whatever. Do you think it's usually a way to protect oneself or a way to push someone else away?
So now tell me that how does the tone of voice affect the meaning of whatever?
Everything. Tone is basically the whole story with this word. A quick, light whatever can just mean, I'm easy, you pick the restaurant, while a slow, drawn out whatever with a sigh is practically a declaration of war. It's the difference between being flexible and being totally done with the conversation.
Okay, so now tell me that can whatever be considered rude?
In a heartbeat. Most people definitely see it as rude, especially if the other person is trying to be serious or share something important. It's essentially a way of telling someone their point isn't worth the effort of a real response. Do you think it's ever okay to use it in a serious conversation?
So now tell me that why is whatever often associated with indifference?
Because it's the ultimate I'm not invested word. It basically signals that the outcome doesn't matter to you, or that you've reached a point where you no longer care about the result. It's the linguistic equivalent of a shrug. Do you feel like indifference is usually a cover for actually caring too much?
So now tell me that can saying whatever ever be a healthy response?
Rarely, but it can be. In some cases, it's a way of picking your battles. If someone is trying to provoke you on purpose and you respond with whatever, you're essentially refusing to give them the reaction they want. It's a way of protecting your peace when a conversation isn't going anywhere. Does that feel like a power move or just a way to cope?
So now tell me that how do different generation use the word whatever?
No, it really comes down to reading the room and the energy of the other person. If you want to be flexible, keep it light and quick. If you want to set a boundary or stop a loop, you can be more firm, but just know that you're signaling the end of the dialogue. The key is knowing whether you're trying to be easygoing or trying to shut things down. Do you think you're usually the one using it or the one hearing it?
So now tell me that what role did movies and television play in popularizing whatever?
They played a massive role. They basically took a word that was just a pronoun and turned it into a personality trait. Like we talked about with Clueless, it gave the word a specific visual and attitude, the eye roll, the hand gesture that people wanted to mimic. It turned a shrug into a cultural statement of detachment. I wonder if you think those kinds of trends still happen with the way we talk today, or if things move too fast now for movies to have that kind of influence.
So now tell me that can whatever damage relationship or communications?
Absolutely. It can be a real relationship killer because it basically tells the other person that what they're saying isn't worth your time or attention. Um, when someone is trying to be vulnerable or resolve a conflict and they get hit with a whatever, it feels like a wall is being put up. It erodes trust because it the other person stops feeling seen or heard. Do you think it's harder to recover from a whatever than from a heated argument?
So now tell me that so what are some
I'm still here.
now tell me that why do teenagers often use the word whatever?
It's the ultimate shield. For them, it's a way to assert independence and create a bit of distance. It's an easy way to signal that they're not buying into whatever the adult in the room is saying without having to actually engage in a full blown debate. Plus, it's just a low effort way to feel like they have the upper hand in a conversation. Do you think it's more about rebellion or just a lack of words for how they're actually feeling?
So now tell me that is indifference always a negative attitude?
Not necessarily. Sometimes indifference is actually a survival mechanism. Like when you're dealing with a toxic situation and the only way to stay sane is to stop letting it get to you. In those cases, it's not about being cold, it's about protecting your energy. Do you think there's a difference between being indifferent to a person and just being indifferent to a specific situation?
Okay, so now tell me that how does the word whatever reflect modern culture?
I think it reflects a bit of a culture of detachment. We're in this era where everything is so fast and overwhelming that being over it has almost become a status symbol. It's like we use these kinds of expressions to keep a distance so we don't get completely burned out by the constant noise. It's a way of saying, I'm choosing not to engage with this. Do you feel like that sense of detachment is something you see a lot in people your age?
So now tell me that
I'm with you. What else is on your mind?
are there similar expressions in other language?
Oh, definitely. Most languages have their own version of that conversational shrug. In Spanish, you'll hear da lo mismo, or just a very specific ba. And in French, peu importe hits that same note of it doesn't matter. Even without words, a lot of cultures have a specific sound or a click of the tongue that does the exact same work as a whatever. I'm curious if you've heard any of those or if you've noticed a similar phrase in a language you're familiar with.
So now tell me that what psychological reason might lead someone to say whatever frequently?
It often comes down to a desire for control or a fear of vulnerability. When someone says whatever a lot, they might be trying to avoid a conflict they don't feel equipped to handle, or they're protecting themselves from being hurt by not admitting they actually care. It can also be a sign of emotional exhaustion, where they just don't have the bandwidth to process any more nuance. Do you think that's usually a conscious choice or something people do without realizing it?
So what psychological reason might lead someone's so what can we learn about communication from the popularity of the word whatever?
I think it tells us that we're often looking for shortcuts. It shows how we sometimes value convenience or self protection over actually being understood. It's basically a sign that there's a huge gap between what people are actually feeling and what they're willing to say out loud. Do you think that makes our connections with others shallower, or is it just a natural evolution of how we talk?
So now tell me that
I'm still with you.
what does the word whatever means?
Wait, we've come full circle. Since we just spent the last 20 minutes dissecting every single angle of it, I'd say it's a conversational shrug that can mean anything from I'm easy to I'm totally done with this conversation. Do you want to go back to the beginning, or are you just testing to see if I'm still paying attention?
So now tell me that when was the word whatever
I'm all
first
ears.
recorded in English?
Let me double check that for you. It goes way back. It was first recorded during the Middle English period, with some sources pointing to as early as the early 1300s. It started as a simple compound of what and ever, and was used as a pronoun meaning no matter what. Wild to think that a word we now use to be dismissive has been around for over 700 years. Do you think that's a long time for a word to take that kind of turn?
So can you tell me that when did whatever how did whatever become a symbol of casual dismissal?
It was a slow burn that eventually hit a tipping point. It shifted from a way to describe any possibility to a way of saying that no possibility actually matters. Really solidified when youth culture in the 80s and 90s started using it to signal a lack of investment or a desire to push back against authority without having to argue. Once it became a shorthand for I don't care in movies and TV, it stopped being a descriptor and started being an attitude. Do you think that kind of linguistic shift happens because we're just looking for easier ways to express frustration?
So now tell me that why do some
I'm
people
listening.
view whatever as disrespectful?
Because it's essentially a way of erasing the other person's point. When you're putting effort into explaining something or trying to have a real conversation, and you get hit with a whatever, it feels like the other person is saying your thoughts aren't even worth the time it takes to disagree with them. It's a lack of acknowledgement that can feel really dismissive. Do you think that's why it hits so hard, or is it more about the tone people use when they say it?
So, how does body language change the meaning of whatever?
It's the secret sauce that makes the word actually work. A slow eye roll or a sigh while saying it basically turns the word into a wall, signaling that the person is completely checked out. But if someone says it with a small smile or shoulders, it's more like a, sure, I'm down for anything. The body language tells you if the person is actually flexible or if they're just done with you. Do you find that you're better at reading the physical cues or the tone of voice?
So, now tell me that what is the difference between acceptance and indifference?
It's a massive difference in energy. Acceptance is active. It's when you've processed something and decided to make peace with it, even if it's not what you wanted. Indifference, on the other hand, is a total lack of feeling. Acceptance says, I see this and I'm okay with it. While indifference says, I don't care enough to even notice. Do you feel like people often mistake one for the other?
So, now tell me that
Mm,
why do
I'm
parents
right
usually
here.
react when children say whatever?
Usually it's a power struggle. Parents often see whatever as a direct challenge to their authority or a sign of disrespect. It's not just the word, but the feeling that the child is checking out of the conversation and refusing to engage with the possibly guidelines or lessons they're trying to provide. It's like a conversational door slamming in the face. Do you think parents overreact to it, or is it a fair response given the lack of respect?
So, why is whatever usually react when why is whatever common during disagreements?
Because it's a perfect exit strategy. It's a way to end the tension without actually having to solve the problem. When an argument gets too intense or circular, whatever acts like a circuit breaker, it just stops the flow of the conversation so the person doesn't have to keep defending themselves or admit they're wrong. Do you think that's a helpful way to handle conflict, or does it just leave things simmering under the surface?
So, now tell me, can
I'm
using
with you. What's
whatever
next on?
help avoid conflict or does it create more conflict?
It's a bit of a double edged sword. In the short term, it can definitely stop a blow up by just ending the interaction right then and there. But in the long run, it usually creates more conflict because the actual issue never got fixed. It's like putting a bandage over a wound that hasn't been cleaned. It looks fine for a second, but it's probably going to get worse. Do you think people use it to be peaceful or because they're just too tired to fight?
So, now tell me that are there famous movies or TV scenes that popularized whatever?
Oh, definitely. Like we touched on earlier, Clueless is the gold standard here. Cher Horowitz basically turned it into a performance with that W hand gesture, making it the ultimate teenage anthem of the 90s. You also see it a lot in those classic 90s teen dramas and sitcoms where the disaffected youth character uses it to show they're too cool to care. It basically became a shorthand for a whole generation's attitude on screen. You think those kinds of movie tropes still shape how we talk? Do you think social media has completely taken over that role?
So, now tell me that how do teachers
I'm
and
listening.
employers perceive the word whatever?
Generally, they see it as a huge red flag. In a professional or academic setting, it's often interpreted as a lack of exceptionalism, apathy, or a direct challenge to authority. If an employee tells their boss whatever during a performance review, it's not just a word, it's basically saying, I don't respect you or this process enough to engage with it. The same goes for teachers. It's seen as a dismissal of the effort they're putting into the lesson. Do you think that's a fair perception, or do you feel like some
So,
people
what does
just use it as
frequent
a
use of
habit with
whatever reveal about a person's attitude?
it usually suggests a level of detachment, like whether it's a defensive mechanism to avoid being hurt, sign of total emotional burnout, or just a habit of trying to avoid conflict. It basically says the person isn't fully present in the moment. It can make them seem mysterious to some, but to others, it just looks like they've trying to connect. Do you think it's
So,
a sign of strength to be that detached or a
so
sign of
can you tell me
weakness?
that can whatever be used humorously?
Totally. It can be a great way to poke fun at yourself or a situation if the timing is right. Like if you're trying to be all serious and organized, but everything is going wrong, as self deprecating, whatever, can be a way of saying, well, this is a disaster, but I'm just going to roll with it. The, it takes the pressure off and can actually be a bonding moment if the other person is in on the joke. Do you think humor is a good way to diffuse the
So, tell
tension
me
that
that
usually comes with that word?
how do cultural difference affect the interpretation of whatever?
It can completely change the meaning. In cultures that prioritize directness and explicit agreement, whatever can feel like a slap in the face because it's so ambiguous. But in cultures where saving face and avoiding direct conflict are more important, it might be seen as a more polite way to end a disagreement without having to say no explicitly. It's all about whether the culture values the truth of the conversation or the harmony of the group. Do you think some cultures are more accepting of that kind of ambiguity than others?
So, now tell me that how
I'm right
what are
here.
some
Let's
positive alternatives to experience expressing indifference?
If you're looking to move away from that dismissive energy, there are a few ways to do it. And you can try, I'm fine with either option if you're actually being flexible, or I don't have a strong preference to show you're open to their choice. If you're just exhausted and need a break, saying, I'm not sure how to feel about this right now, can we take a break? Is a way to be honest without shutting the other person out. Do you think you'd find it easier to be specific about your indifference or to just use a phrase that sounds more open?
So, now tell me that why do people pretend not to care about things that matter to them, like whatever?
Usually a defense mechanism. Admitting you care makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability is scary. Using whatever is like wearing a suit of armor. It protects you from the possibility of being rejected or disappointed. If you pretend you didn't anyway, then it can actually hurt you when you don't get it. Do you think it's easier to act indifferent than to admit you're disappointed?
Okay, so now tell me that how might the future of the word whatever
I'm listening.
change as language evolves?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think
So
it'll
listen,
probably keep shifting based on
I want a
how
big answer of this question.
I'm all in. Give me the question, and I'll give you everything I've got.
So how might the future of the word whatever changes as language evolves?
That is a fascinating question to think about. Language is always moving, and whatever has already had a pretty wild ride from a simple pronoun to a cultural weapon. In the future, I think we'll see it evolve in a few different directions. First, there's the possibility that it becomes so tied to that specific 90s and early 2000s disaffected youth vibe that it eventually feels dated, like how Groovy or Rad did. It might be replaced by a new phrase that captures that same
Okay,
feeling of
Maya. Okay.
detachment.
I understand. So I hope you liked our conversation. We will meet soon, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.